Aloha and welcome. In this video, we're going to be talking about replay attacks and hash the hash attacks. So the first one we're going to talk about is the replay attack. And the replay attack is known as a repeat attack or a playback attack. This is one where you've got an attacker that is acting as a man in the middle. They're man in the middle between somebody that's going to a website and the website itself. So they've gotten in the middle here. And what they're doing is they're snooping on that conversation. They pull some data out. They pull out some data, and then they can take those things if they know what's going on in it. Like, hey, here's the one where they reset their password. They'll save those frames, and they can replay them later. They can take those, modify it a little bit to maybe change the password to something they know, and then they can resubmit those data frames to or data packets to that server. And the reason why they would do that is, of course, to hack it. But the reason they can do that is because the server is not checking properly for timestamps or sequence numbers in there. They're not keeping track of whether or not they've already seen these messages. So they're just listening to the transmission, finds something good, grabs it, manipulates it, and then later on they can send it and effectively do whatever. They can copy, mimic, or modify behavior that they've seen, with like changing a password. So they can do that, and the only reason they can do that is because the server is not checking for timestamps or sequence numbers. Another type of attack like this, the replay attack, is a session ID attack, and that's the session replay attack. And that's so when you're going to a website like Zappos or Amazon or wherever it is, and you're given this session ID. And that session ID, it's going to be valid for the whole time that you're at that site. So a session replay attack is when user's session ID has been gotten by the attacker. The attacker impersonates them, uses that session ID, and then tries to do things on that website. So that's a session replay attack. They just use the session ID to impersonate the user that's already been authenticated. So there's another one, a notorious one called pass the hash. So you've got this challenge and response authentication protocol called New Technology LAN Manager, NTLM. And NTLM, when it's doing its authentication, it's using, it basically has the user send their domain name, a username, and not the password, but a password hash. So it's a hash of the password. So if you're a man in the middle and you're snooping on this conversation and you pick up that authentication, you can get the hash that you need. So then you can use the pass the hash attack and send along the you can send along your own the domain, the username, and password hash, and interact with that site. So this is an exploit that has been used a lot in the past, and you'll hear about it in famous attacks if you ever go and look into the history of different attacks out there. I used to listen to dark web diaries a lot, and I was surprised at how many times I would hear about pass the hash actually working. So this, again, it's an attack that exploits an implementation vulnerability in NTLM's authentication protocol, because they're keeping that hash static from session to session until they change their password. So once they start using that hash, or that once they've changed their password, that password hash remains static. They're always going to keep that static hash. So you can take that, if you've found what the hash is, you can then replay it until they change their password again. So this is a real dangerous vulnerability, and it's been exploited a lot. So anyway, that's what I want you to keep in mind. You need to have provisions, on your server to, do timestamps, sequencing type of things, so that it can realize when it's seeing packets that it's already seen before. And you have to be careful with NTLM because, if you've got, if you're using NTLM, you've got that password hash vulnerability. So anyway, that's it for this lesson. Again, recapping that, replay attacks is when you're replaying things that you've already seen and the server's not checking. You can also reuse session IDs. So the session IDs that web applications hand out, you can use that to impersonate being an authenticated user. And then if a a target is using NTLM, you can use the pass the hash attack because they're using the same password hash when they're authenticating, and that remains static until you change the password again. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and I'd be happy to help. Aloha.